Okay, good evening. This says October 2nd, which I know is wrong. It's November 13th, 2018. Welcome to our select board meeting. Francine Tishman, Matt Rowland, and Maureen Groden. Jim Ray couldn't make it tonight. We are not being fed live because the system is still not up yet, but we're being recorded for your viewing pleasure later on. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first, we have an appointment, Margaret Larson to the Master Plan Implementation Committee with a term to expire June 30th, 2020. Hi, Margaret, how are you? Good. Good. Would you like to say anything about this, or? I always like to gauge interest in
Margaret Larson, 9 David Street. And so I was asked to be a part of this committee, but it's certainly one of my interests in seeing how the city evolves, the town evolves, and I think some things have been sitting on the back burner for a while, and I think we need a group of people just implementing the plan that took a lot of time and a lot of money to develop. And I also sat when I lived in California, I sat on the master plan committee for Elk Grove, California, where I lived as a teacher's rep. So I have a little bit of experience in that kind of regard.
Any questions for Margaret? You're also on the HRHS school committee,
Correct.
Ed, any paperwork that it's all set?
It's all set.
Okay. Can I have a motion to appoint Margaret to the MPI, please?
I move to approve Margaret.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thanks, Margaret. Appreciate it. Okay, dog hearing. This has been before us a couple of times. And this is the complainant, Joseph Yusowski, did I say that right? 63 White Loaf Road, owner of the dog is Mr. Abrahamson and Mrs. Washburn, and 55 White Loaf Road. Are the owners here by chance? No? Okay. You want to come up here? What we have so far is we've got a whole list of where we've been with this process before, and the latest was...
Yes, to be sworn in.
We will, yeah. Sorry. Latest was May 8th. I went to court, and the dog owner didn't show up for the court. And so that's where it has been since then. I believe you folks came back in September asking it to be addressed again, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so before we go, as Randy was saying, we've got to swear you in. So if you could raise your right hand, you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Okay, so can you just give us an update in the last couple of months?
This is the third time I've been down here, and I've had to call the police 17 times because of Mrs. Washburn's neglect to care for her dog. And I only call the police about half the time. So it just shows you what's going on. I got just a couple examples here. Here's one. You people got on your list here, this the two. On 10/5, Mrs. Washburn's dog barked from 11:20 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning, keeping my wife and myself up. At 2 o'clock, I couldn't take it anymore, so I called the police. So the police went to their house at 2:19 in the morning, and the dog owner brought the dog in after barking for 3 hours in the middle of the night, keeping me and my wife up. That's just one.
Brought the dog in before the police came?
Oh, I'm sorry, no. When the police arrived, the owner came out and brought the dog in with the police there.
So the police saw it?
Yeah, it's on. I've got it's in the record.
Shortly after you called, that you tolerated it for 3 hours.
Yeah.
As a reasonable person.
Yeah. Here's another one. Sunday morning, 9/24/18. Her yellow lab comes walking around in our yard, goes over to our gas grill, lifts his leg, and urinates on it. She just lets the dog loose. I don't think she has any way of containing the dogs. Here's another one you're going to enjoy. On 6/13, my wife and I went to bed, and it was 9:10 p.m., and her dogs have been barking for 45 minutes. So I called the police. You've got the police log for this. At 9:30, the police show up. Their front door is wide open. There's dogs barking, which wouldn't let the police enter the house. The police try to contact the owner with their cell phone. They couldn't get anybody on their cell phone. She's got some black labs, and occasionally, they're noted in my report, they come over in our backyard, stand below our dining room window, and bark and growl. When I go outside to try and let them go home, these dogs are vicious. They bark and they lunge at me. They show their teeth. The problem is they only stay here 5 for 10 minutes, so I don't call the police because by the time the police got here, they'd be gone. Because after 5 or 10 minutes, when the dogs are in my yard barking, somebody in the Washburn house calls them back, and the dogs, they go back to their,
So dogs go back when they call?
yeah, so I can't call the animal control officer on that because by the time he got there, or she got there. And I'm just asking people for some help to take care of the situation.
It has been going on for a long time, and you're right, you've been here 3 times. Now, Ed, help me out on this one. A couple things we can do is we could have the owners put up a fence.
There's a couple things, couple of options here, and I think they kind of haven't really paid attention to the fines, they haven't really paid attention to the court. The board could,
Have we been finding them, just for
yes,
some history?
yeah,
And they haven't paid?
and they have not paid the fines.
What have we been
yet.
finding them, how much and how often?
I think it was for unlicensed dogs, which is $35 a shot, so
Do we have any way to collect that money, or?
I would have to look at that, but I think,
We haven't been finding for the disturbance, just unlicensed dogs,
correct.
because we can't fine for the disturbance?
I just don't think that the police have done that when they
Isn't that
go.
also a Board of Health issue for noise complaint?
We don't really have a noise ordinance, so that, and that extent, I think it would be hard to prove. But what you may consider doing is doing a continuance on the hearing. There are a couple options. I think your next step to try to get some direct action out of them may be to issue an ordinance, declare them nuisance dogs, declare an order, which you have several options to do. You could give them a timeline like 30 days to have the dogs licensed, which they currently aren't. You can require them to keep the dogs inside during certain hours. You could require them to fence in their yard or an area of the yard to keep the dogs. You could require them, if the dogs are out, to build a kennel for them and have them in the kennel. Those are all options, but I would be happy to work with KP Law on a letter, a recommended letter for the next steps of declaring that order.
I mean, we can declare these all we want, but how do we enforce it?
Well, the next step after you send that, if it hasn't been, if you give them 30 days, like to license the dogs or whatever, if they haven't, then the next step would be to take it to court.
I mean, a couple things here. One, I guess, I think whatever else we do, we need to give them 30 days to license the dog because they should be licensed and follow up on that. Secondly, if we're fining them and they're not paying, how can we put, excuse the expression, teeth into it so that we can collect it? Because it's not a pain point if they're not paying it. So can we find out that also?
Sure, I'll be happy to.
Okay, and then after that, so a question for you. If we restricted them outside at certain hours, is that going to take care of the problem, or does it matter what time of day?
Her dogs are a nuisance to me and my wife all day long.
Okay, so you
She
come
comes home
home
from work, the dogs are in the yard barking and growling, showing their teeth.
Yeah,
This is morning, noon, and night.
okay. So time frame isn't going to help you at all.
Fence.
Yeah,
The worst time is,
right.
Is there property on the other side of her house that's not adjacent to yours, that if she were to put a fenced area, they would be further from you and you would have less of a disturbance?
her house is approximately 200 feet behind us.
Okay.
is it abutting yours, or is there another yard in between?
No, there's 200 feet of our land, and then her house is right there.
Okay, so her land abuts yours?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
If she leaves them dogs out at night, they're gonna keep me and my wife up.
Yeah,
So you need kind of a twofold approach, a barrier plus can't be out at night.
You know what, I think it'd be reasonable to ask her to keep her dogs after 9 o'clock, keep them in the house. I don't think that's unreasonable.
I don't think it is either. I'm just not sure how we would control barking during the day.
yeah, I guess the only thing about that, having two dogs, I often, not often, every night before I turn in, I walk the two dogs, you know, let them do their thing and all that in the yard, so they may have to go out, but as long as they're on the leash, under control for a short period, that shouldn't bother you.
And gentlemen, I'm sorry, and ladies, we're not here because the barking's for 15 or 20 minutes, because
Right.
we've had dogs all our life, and I could understand that. It's just, this goes on for hours,
Yeah,
or for 45 minutes at 9 o'clock at night. If you take a dog out, in 15 minutes, 20 minutes,
no,
I could live with that.
trust me, less than that.
And does it seem, I mean, from the sounds of things, when the police have gone, that when they go to the house, there's no one there and the dogs are left in the yard with no one home? Is that also the case?
Several cases, yes, not all the time. On the police reports, a couple of times they were home, and Mr. Abraham's son or the owner brought the dog in. A couple of times, like the one time I mentioned, I don't know what happened, they just left the door wide open, the police couldn't go in, because I'm assuming there was 3 dogs preventing them from going in the house. It's on the police report.
Yeah, I don't know if they'd go in without somebody inviting them in anyways, so, yeah. Okay, so here's a thought, just for discussion here. We already got following up on the fines that they owe 30 days to license the dogs. And if we have them keep in the dogs inside, say between 9 PM to 6 AM, and then either a fence in the yard or build a kennel to contain them during the day. That's a lot, but I think they've built themselves up to this.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like this has been going on for a while, so I think we need to do something in this meeting. I think that would be good.
And is that,
Do you have all that? Well, Ed?
Follow up on the fines, keep them inside from 9 PM to 6 PM.
AM.
AM, yeah, there we go.
Yeah. License the dogs 30 days in either a kennel or a fence to keep them contained and off the abutter's property.
and that they probably shouldn't be left alone. If no one's home, they shouldn't be left outside.
During the day, is that going to be an issue? If they're in a fenced-in yard during the day?
I can live with the noise during the day, because I'm not sleeping.
Okay. I don't want to be too restrictive on that, yeah. Let them exercise, okay. Okay, does that sound like it would take care of your issues?
If she abided by them.
Well, we're going to run it through town legal and see what we can do on that, and give us, I would say, a couple weeks, Ed, before they get back to us. I hate to say that long, but,
I would say probably, 10 days to 2 weeks.
okay. And Ed will get back to one of you folks,
Oh, thank you very much.
and we'll put it on
Happy
the
to.
agenda.
Yeah,
The next agenda.
I've got Mr. Usowski's phone number and I think
Okay.
his email also, so
Yeah.
I'll be in touch with him.
And we'll put it on another agenda, just so it'll go through the public process and people can hear what we're doing. But Ed can give you a call, too.
Thank you very much.
Sorry to bring you in 3 times.
You're doing your best.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, take care.
Thank you, Mr. Usowski.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate
Ed, I
it.
remember when I was on the Board of Health, there were noise complaints, dirt bikes and so forth, and I thought that we did have barns, of course, with, there was a lot of issue at one point around noise. So I just remember that we did have something, and there were set times, so as opposed to just like, what would you prefer? Like, it would be good to compare it against what I thought we did have, some kind of guidelines around time of night and time in the morning, just so we're not making it up based on, what, one particular case, what you would prefer. I just think that it would be good to look into what we may already have.
I have not seen anything in our bylaws, to be
Okay,
honest with you.
I just remember on Board of Health, we dealt with noise at least 2 or 3 times.
And I guess whatever we ultimately decide here should be, in order to be consistent, if this happens to anyone else, obviously, we would want to
Yeah,
apply the same.
because I mean, I have 2
standards.
dogs
So
too.
we should
This is
document
entirely a
whatever it
noise
is.
issue. I mean, these dogs are not leashed and they're not
Right,
anywhere
yeah,
near their property.
right.
I mean, I think he's articulated that, I think he's he's fine with the noise during the day, and as long as the dogs aren't approaching his house and running around
Right.
his yard and growling at his front window, that he'd otherwise
Right.
be fine, and this wouldn't be an issue.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, I have 2 dogs too. I don't let them out at 9 o'clock at night. I let them out around 10 or 11 at night just to go to the bath and come right back in, and they're restrained or in the yard, that sort of thing. So, I mean, I just don't want to be restrictive and be isolated in the way we approach this. I think it should be based on across the board kind of a procedure or policy, and I'm pretty sure we had something.
Plus, the other thing is, this is the third time he's coming in. This should have been settled a long time ago with the
Yeah,
owner.
right.
But if the owner is ignoring, we've got to take different steps, I think.
Had we sent out a certified letter at any point?
Well, each time we've had a hearing, a certified letter and a regular
Okay.
letter would have gone
That's
out.
what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
no
it's-
response.
No,
Plus-
yeah, and, you know, I know I was not here for the 2017 hearing. I know for the May 8th hearing that the card eventually came back as not being signed or accepted. And I have not gotten one back for this one, so I shouldn't say this, but I will assume probably the same thing will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if somebody ignores it, then I guess we have to just go through what we need to do.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, it's not fair to you, but I just want to be able to have some across-the-board sort of approach to this so that if other situations come out, it's not like 8 o'clock versus 9 o'clock versus 7, you know,
Oh,
that sort of
right,
thing.
yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that, we
treat it
have a
consistently.
policy about it.
Yeah, I think this is only the second one I've been involved with in my time here, so that doesn't
Yeah.
come up that often. But you're right. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Bye. Okay, reports, selectmen, select people. Francine, would you like to start?
Sure. The Hampshire Regional High School School Committee met last Monday, the 5th, and there was a presentation by a state trooper by the name of Trooper Carmichael, who provided recommendations on security of the front entrance of the school. It is one of the capital projects for this fiscal year that the school has identified in order to put a barrier or a holding area between the door and the actual body of the school. So his recommendation was that they divide the front entryway in half, put a shatterproof glass window on one of the walls so that whomever's in the office and who can buzz them in through the electronic buzzer system can actually see the individual. Because right now, they just let people in, and then the first time anyone gets a look at them is when they're right in the main office, so they're in the body of the school. So this would create a barrier between the, people coming in from the outside and actually entering the proper portion of the school.
This is in Hampshire.
This is Hampshire Regional. I believe that they felt it would be within their budget, and I think it's an important thing for school safety.
So are they going to go ahead and explore
I
that more?
believe they're going to go ahead and do it, but they need to get someone to design it and cost it out and so forth. This is just the beginning of the process. But I believe they've set aside $200,000 for this project in their capital budget this year. The other thing that came up is the school does not have a panic alarm. The school committee passed the homeschooling policy, and right now Hampshire Regional High School has somewhere between 5 and 6 kids who are being homeschooled. They passed a policy on memorials for individuals students or faculty or someone important to the school. If they pass away, they passed a policy on perpetual awards for such things as scholarships, and then temporary memorials for up to 12 months. They're still going over the student alcohol policy and the notion of breathalyzers, and they have a committee who is going to be examining it more closely. The understanding is each breathalyzer costs about $700. But they need to put a policy in place that if they do buy them, how are they going to be used and when? And what are the steps? They have an outline, but I think the committee has to look at it very carefully before the committee will pass it. And the other interesting news is that The teacher contract negotiations were to start today. I'm not sure if they did, but it was November 13th because the high school teachers' contract expires in August of 2019. So they're getting a jump on it. So that's the news from the school, other than the fact that they have 732 students, of which 324 are from Southampton. And the other interesting point that I found is that the next highest population of the students from school choice, they number 134, and every other sending town has an enrollment of less than 100 students of the
So
other
how
four
many
towns
total
coming.
students are in there?
Pardon?
How many total students?
732, grades 7 through 12,
And we have 324 of them?
of which we represent 44% of the Hampshire regional
And
population.
how much are school choice again?
134 students. Anyway,
So, just thinking out loud though, so in this division, should the school choice be separated out because they're paying to come in?
right.
So they're
Well-
not really part of the towns.
Well,
Right?
that's an interesting thought to think, to hold on to
Yeah.
as we talk a little bit later.
Sure.
All right, so that was the first group. The second meeting I attended was the Master Plan Implementation Committee on November 6th. We elected officers. Mike Rosenberg is the chair, and he's going to be reporting on the progress of that committee at our next meeting here on November 27th. I'm really happy to say that the committee is a blend of people of all ages and with, long-term residents and new residents to the town. So I think we probably have a good 360 view of everyone's interests, or they will be represented. We're in the process of verifying all the progress that has been reported towards the goals already, verifying it, and then also trying to research and find out, has anything else been done on the plan in a kind of in an informal way that we're not aware of. So we're in the information gathering stage at this point. We are looking to update the demographic information because most of the data that was referenced in the report was from 2010. I have a document here that gives some demographic data going just to 2016, so it's only 2 years old, so we might want to look at that. There's a possibility that we will send out a survey along with the annual census that is sent out by the town clerk to get a more accurate picture of the town's composition and interests. And I believe that with Margaret, she's the next to the last position to be appointed, and we do have a fourth candidate who has expressed an interest in joining, so we should be fully complemented. The last committee is the Norris School Repair Committee, and they met on November 7th. I don't know that everyone was aware, but there was an inspection done towards the end of summer from the building department, the fire department, and the Board of Health. There were a number of issues that were cited. Actually, I think there were 13 items, of which I'm really happy to say 11 of them have been resolved. They have a new head custodian who's really, taken charge and has been very proactive in getting things done and being very communicative in terms of keeping everybody informed of what's going on. So he's not only gotten them done, he's done it for less money. He actually gets bids and talks to contractors and, gets prices down. And so in the interest of the school budget, he's doing a great job.
Who's the new person?
His name is Tom LaVille.
Oh, Lavelli.
Lavelli.
From town?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I know Tom, yep.
I didn't know him, I just met him at the
He
meeting.
went to school here and up
Yep.
through Hampshire Regional.
He's doing a great job.
Great,
So that was my report. Thank you.
thanks.
Can I ask you a question? I know that most of the time it's census data that we look at every 10 years to get demographics. What is the source of the 2016 data?
The municipal demographic data, I'm not sure where their source is, but they have all the population counts, tax information, school enrollment and everything that they gather from the towns, I guess, on an annual basis. Maybe Janine turns her information over to this group, and then this group publishes a document for all the towns in the state, and so
And the-
that's where I have
And the name of it is what? The name of the,
municipal demographic data. It's put out by the Massachusetts Municipal Directory. I'll pass it down. You can take a look.
thanks.
I'm sure it's available online, but I'll be happy to make copies or share it.
Thank you. Maureen, do you want to go next?
Sure, so I'll let Open Space and Conservation Commission, and I think Community Preservation are presenting tonight, right? So I'll let you speak directly to that. I just wanted to mention that we did have a combined meeting of the Conservation Commission and the Open Space Committee, and Kestrel came, Kestrel Land Trust, and we talked about what would it involve to have a fund for the town of Southampton for donation of acquiring land and/or maintenance of land. So there'll be a follow-up meeting of the Open Space Committee later on this month to discuss that. The only other, so Open Space and Conservation Commission and Community Preservation are committees that I'm liaison to. And the other one is the Council of Aging, and I'll pass along some information from Janet Kane, the chair. The Murder Mystery Theater is being held this Friday evening. It's almost sold out, so if you'd like to go to that, get a ticket soon. And also, the Council of Aging is exploring the best options for spending the money that I mentioned last time, the earmark that we received, $5,500, will go towards equipment and programming, but they're looking at the best way to make those funds available for seniors.
Question, I was trying to look it up and I can't find it. When is the open space meeting? It's the end of the
What is it,
month.
the 28th? 28th.
28th, okay. If anybody's interested, it's on November 28th, and we usually have it in here.
It is in here, yep.
Okay. It was an interesting meeting, I thought.
Yeah, I agree.
A lot of good ideas came out of it. Thanks, Concom. Thank you, appreciate it. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Matt?
Board of Health hasn't met since last meeting, with the exception of this evening. I made the first half hour of that meeting, which surrounded discussion surrounding an emergency situation that we were just planning for an emergency situation if we ever need to max vaccinate or take care of people in a healthcare crisis. Basically just emergency planning. There's people here that are from, that are representing the western part of Massachusetts to help prepare for a situation that may or may not happen in the future with regard to that. It was only the first 30 minutes of the meeting, so that was all I was there for. And then PQB, I do have a few things to discuss, but I think we can probably discuss those when we get to the PCFs.
Okay,
And
good.
capital improvement hasn't
Okay,
met.
okay.
Can I ask you a question? Was Charlie Konecki there, our EMD director?
No.
Okay, that would be him.
When was that?
The Board of Health,
Oh, yeah.
30 minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
It started at 6:30.
Okay.
So I managed to make it for the first half hour.
Okay, FinCom, there was no meeting of FinCom. Next one's 11/19, which is Monday, 5:30 upstairs. Planning, Jim Labrie went to that, and he's not here, so can't report on that. Public Safety Committee, there is a meeting scheduled for November 29th at 5 o'clock. Anybody interested in that?
What was the date of that again?
29th, 5 o'clock. Yeah, I think, you're welcome. I think that's it. Ed, do you want to give your report?
Sure. Just want to let you know that K-Saco Electric has confirmed the ship date for our emergency generator for the town hall from the manufacturer will be January 14th. And the gas meter upgrade, which was required for the emergency generator, has been completed by Holyoke Gas and Electric. We have had some issues with both of the town hall boilers over the past week. BG Mechanical has been here several days diagnosing the issues and working on the boilers, and hopefully that has been resolved. I have sent the capital request letters and forms out for the capital committee. Currently, some of the 5-year projects I am thinking for the town hall are design of a septic system expansion, which I'll call Phase 1, installation of expanded septic system for town hall Phase 2, possibility for a solar field in the property next to the town hall behind the fire station, Possibility of paving the parking area behind the fire station for additional town hall parking if that area is not required for expansion of the town hall septic system. Replacement of the HVAC controls for town hall as they are at the end of their useful life. That's a project that may also fall under the green communities. Painting the trim on the town hall, replacing of the carpeting at the main entrance door, and masonry work on cracks in the foundation and a phone system for town hall. I'll be spending the next several weeks concentrating on the license and common victular renewals and the related paperwork that need to go out and come back in to be voted on before the new year starts. And just to let you know, Jessica Suarez has resigned from the Finance Committee effective immediately due to the time constraints of that position, unfortunately.
Right, I saw that paperwork. So before we leave that, we have a position on the Finance Committee, if anybody out there, well, being recorded, so if anybody hears this, if anybody's interested, get a hold of Ed on that, because we have one opening, we're looking for an interested party.
And we do have one application that has come in.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Old business, the request for quotes for the replacement of the asphalt shingled roof on the Conan Park Pavilion and rebuilding the chimney have been received. The low quote received, not including any decking that may be required from ROT, was for $14,000, which is within their budget. The vendor's references and credentials are currently being checked by myself. So it looks like that project may be able to move forward.
You said Conan, right?
I said Conan, yes. The request for quotes for the replacement of the metal roof on the Zipta barn has been received. The low quote was for $47,995, not including the replacement of any fascia board or replacement of any rotted beams, and that was over the existing appropriated budget for that project. And then the next special project I will be working on is finding a qualified consultant to perform the feasibility envelope study evaluation of the police station, Old Town Hall on East Street. And then upcoming December Board of Selectmen meetings are still to be determined for the dates. And that's it for me.
Okay, thanks, Ed.
Can I ask you, what do you see as the next steps relative to the over quote on the Zipta barn? I mean, not including the boards that have to obviously be placed, that's going to add up quickly, and it's still about $8,000 over what the town approved through CPC.
I would say that in my mind, if the town wanted to move forward with that project, we would need a minimum of $58,000 to be appropriated in any way for that roof to move forward with that current quote.
So $18,000 over what the town has already committed through community preservation funds?
We've got 44, so I would say another 14,000.
Okay.
Exactly. And then, the flip side of that is, that's just the roof. It does not touch on foundation repair. It does not touch on taking the silos down. It does not touch on redoing the siding. So the other question is this going to be a lot more expensive than we thought? And is the alternative just to say, let's take the barn down?
Because when you read some of this, this is a change order nightmare. As far as I was just looking at this, I mean, this provides numerous outs for the contractor to continuously bill over and above what we approved.
I just think it's for the voters of Southampton to decide. They have consistently, as long as I've been a resident of this town, voted to preserve that barn. I know there's a lot of people that don't support that and want, some wind to blow it down. And I'm not going to take, a stand about it. I think the voters of this town should decide, because they have consistently voted in favor of it.
So I agree with that, Randy. What I would like to see done though is for it to be buttoned up as much as possible and not have us be exposed to a change order nightmare, which cost of it. So like right now, as it stands, we've approved a certain amount of money, but it's literally for just one thing. And it specifically disallows all the other things that would need to be fixed in order to finish that project. So it just allows so much room for a contractor to come in and be like,
Well,
this, that, and the other thing, oh, by the way, the project's double the amount of money, or it's gonna be over.
well, the town's only
Once
approved.
it's already open to the sky.
Well, I don't think we have the liberty of actually okaying anything to move forward until we bring it back to the voters, because right now, they've only approved $44,000, and at the time, all they knew it needed was a roof. It's since then that the building inspector went over there and said that the foundation is cracked, and that the roofers said that it would take a lot of repair of the boards to be able to secure the entire building. So I don't think the people that were voting on this had all the information to decide.
Yeah, I don't think you can just put a roof over it because of all the fascia and the soffit and all that. So I think you're right, we're gonna have to go back for more. Your thoughts, Ed?
Like I say, just two different options. One is to go back and get the additional funding to do the roof and recognize that it's phase one and there's going to be further costs down the road for the foundation, taking the silos down, doing the wood, repairing the wood sides where it is rotted out, like I say, or the other alternative is to, step away from the project and to appropriate money to take it down.
Well, I think and I think that's what we're talking about, we need to let the voters know that this is only the first quarter or half. The whole barn's gonna cost us, I'll throw a number out, $150,000. So when they're voting for pieces, they know that.
Yeah,
they-
and are we able to get those numbers
yeah,
ahead of time?
yeah.
Like, for instance, to fix the roof is probably not gonna be, based on what I've been reading, is not $58,000, because once they get into the roof, they're gonna have to replace the soffit and everything else going around it, which is pretty much stipulated, not included, and then it becomes
Well,
like
the 50
$100 per board foot after that to fix these things. So is there a way to, when we go back to the town, which I think we should do, to have an understanding of how much it costs to do the roof in complete fashion with little to no change order risk towards the town? Because I think the worst case scenario is the town votes to approve this, we open up the roof, and then we expose the town to a much higher bill than what the town voters voted on. So, are we able to establish a concrete spec for, say, the fixing of the roof or the foundation, or get all of these pieces of the puzzle together before the town votes on it, so that they know that this is going to be an iterative process and it's not going to go over budget?
Yeah, people may make a different decision about doing the roof if they know what the total cost of the whole building will be in all of its different phases. Marla, you want to say?
Yeah, I just asked her to come up to the podium, though.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anyone who has not seen the barn roof, I would encourage you to let me know or Ed know, and we would be happy to show it to you so you actually see what it looks like. When we had gotten the information together for Ed to put it out for quote, it was very detailed specifically for the roof. What Ed did put out for the RFP, it was very specific. The information, when the bids came back, I don't know if you have copies of it.
Yeah, we
Excuse
see a
me,
lot
the-
of stipulations for change orders in
Excuse
there.
me, the quotes. Well, we had also, because the original information, when we went to see, prior to going to community preservation, we had asked an individual, because nobody else would answer our phone calls, how much would this cost? And so the business gave us some numbers. So we asked for more than that, including other things that needed to be fixed. So we did certainly get back numbers specifically for the roof, for the side, for the rain gutters. And we do have a number of different numbers. We asked for specific details. Please come out to see it. The people who came, the contractors who came out when Ed had the meeting for anyone who was interested to come see it, there were 4 or 5 people who came. Only 2 of them decided to put in a quote, and one clearly wasn't interested because it was more than triple what the other one was. So I don't think we're misleading people. We have had experts look at it. it's not like a house roof. You can see what's rotted and what is not. The people who were there clearly understood the situation. I'm not saying you shouldn't be talking to the voters about it again, but I don't think there's any doubt for when you put it out to the contractors, what they were bidding on. There are no surprises. It's open. You look up, you can see it. It's not like, oh, there's a hidden something. It's a 100-year-old barn that's literally open. So please, feel free to come and take a look.
But I'm also not a builder, Marla, and respectfully, like, when I see numbers like $50 per linear foot for a rafter, I mean, a rafter's absurdly long. So, and like, whose decision point is that? Is that the builder that's into it at the time that decides that the rafter's broken, or is it the Board of Select Board, or is it you standing underneath looking up saying, well, I disagree with you, that rafter needs to be replaced? And the same goes for $26 for linear foot on a fascia board. I mean, I don't mean to argue with you, but fascia runs entirely around the building, and $26 a foot, I mean, just add it up. I don't want to get adversarial on this, but that all adds up, and I'm reading an email right now where it's clearly stipulated.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with whatever you say. I am part of a land and water preservation group, not a old building group. It just came with the land.
I think what we would need to do, I mean, to answer your question, whose responsibility? It would be up to the builder to come to the town administrator saying, I need to have a change order, I think this beam needs to be replaced, and town administrator or Randall, whoever, would say, yeah, we agree,
Yeah.
sign off on a cost. But in order to bring it to the town, the scope of work is there, we can just quickly measure how much fascia, how much soffit, how many beams, and come up with a not-to-exceed cost and bring that to the town. And if all that doesn't need to be done, then it would be less than that.
But I guess my point is, that takes care of the roof. Underneath
Yeah.
the roof, if there are other issues, so you're asking people to make an investment of, let's say it's $50,000 or $60,000 for the roof, only to find out somewhere down the road, it's going to be
Foundation.
$100,000 for the foundation or $30,000. I'm just throwing numbers. I have nothing to base it on, but I'm just saying, before we go back to the voters again, we need to have the whole picture so that they know if they're going to do step one, they're going to do all the way
I
through
agree.
step five.
I
Because
agree with that.
we're buying essentially
Agreed.
the whole notion of preserving it, so.
I think we could get a mason or whoever to come in and give us an estimate and
Okay.
put all the pieces together.
all the pieces.
And we have sort of an expert here, so
Christina Madsen, Rattle Hill Road, and on the Historical Commission, although I'm speaking unofficially. I think it goes without saying that this barn will be a money sink, and it's a barn that, it's a building that is not used. I would like to suggest a third option, and that is for you to contemplate selling it.
selling it and have it moved off premise?
No, just selling
The
the plot, so
yeah.
that is not the responsibility of the town. That would
To
keep
chase
it from
after.
being torn down. Everybody likes to see it there, and if somebody purchases it, even for a small amount, it gets it off of the town's hands. And there could be stipulations that it could be sold with the understanding that it had to be renovated. You could craft an agreement wherein it doesn't fall on the shoulders of the town to keep putting money into it. It's just a suggestion.
One thought
And
was,
there's value in the barn boards and the rafters, so you could also put up an RFQ for someone to come in, and even if they weren't going to rebuild it as the barn, that it has value of somebody that would come in, take it down, and actually reutilize that wood.
I guess what I hate to see is what happened to the Grange. Beautiful windows and everything we thought was going to stay there, and all of a sudden it was gone. They sold off the windows and made a lot of money and left. How are you?
I am fine. Virginia A. Hart, 27 Fulmer Road. I am somewhat involved. I had not intended to speak about this tonight because of community preservation. But I am also speaking of a citizen who has at current time 4 people working on an old barn. So, anyway, I might point out a couple things. We did have a gentleman come, Jack Soban, who is a barn specialist. Doesn't have anything to do with actually repair or anything like that. He doesn't work for anybody. He's just interested in old barns. And he did go through the Zipka barn that day. He gave us a lot of information, not just about the age or anything like that, but what he saw that needed to be done. That information seems to have gone poof. I did have him come over following his meeting at the Zipka barn, and again, he gave a lot of information which I have been using and having my work done. The other thing is he made it clear that the silo did not need to be taken down. So that is not something that he saw falling down into the side hill at any time too soon. Yes, there was a hole in it. Not a big hole. We don't know exactly why, but having grown up on a farm, I can assume that hole is there so that the person who is taking the silage out, when they get down to that level, isn't trying to get it up and over or out someplace else. It's fairly common with that kind of silo. So we can stop worrying about that. I know we have somebody that's very concerned about that and has been saying that. But this gentleman was not. So I think we need to really look at that. The second thing is that although Christina didn't speak to it, we have been assured that probably there would be a demolition delay on it if that was the way people decided to go.
Good, thank you.
Because of it being an historical building,
Yeah.
Virginia?
And also keep in mind, you have taken your meeting out of order because this was supposed to follow the other meeting updates. It was further on the list, but,
This was based on his report, though, the town administrator.
Yeah.
report.
right, but
Kind of segued into it.
there wasn't, it was a separate agenda item
Yep.
you had.
Yeah.
Anyway, when Jack Soban had done the analysis walkthrough with a number of people from the Historical Commission, CPC, Conservation, and Bob Fletcher, he specifically said, of course there's other things to do. It's a 100-something-year-old barn. I can tell you looking at my own house, of course, as years go by, and that's only 40-something years old, of course there's something that you need to do. No one's saying anything else, but he said, address the roof now, because if you don't button that up, it's leaking, it's causing other things to rot. So deal with that. All of this came to play before we put it to the community preservation to ask for the 40,000. We knew this. As far as the foundation having a crack in it, I, as a homeowner, was appalled to see that, and oh my God. And Bob Fletcher was basically, meh. You know, it depends on if you're looking at it as a barn or if you're looking at it as your house. So it's a different thing. No one is saying that the other issues aren't there. But the point that was made 2 years ago now was get that roof fixed or the rot on the inside of those old beams will continue. Everyone who's come in, whether it was the guys looking at it for a quote or the timber frame expert, they all said it has good structure. The vast majority of the beams are in really good condition, but get the roof fixed. Our concern specifically, besides the leaking causing rots, was that they were flapping in the breeze, and it's right next to College Highway and right next to a power line. So it was for the danger. So We weren't going to like do a fundraiser to get $150,000, and if you think it would only cost that, come and fix my house too. But the whole point is, you need to address the roof, and the reason it's coming to the select board, and Jim Labrie at the last community preservation meeting, and, you know, privately speaking, said this is a concern because of where it is, and it's a select board concern. So whether you're going to decide, go back and ask the townsfolk for more money, or put it out to bid again and see if more, out to quote again, and see if anyone else besides these two people who really didn't seem to want to do it now, if someone else will do it, and keep in mind you're getting killed because of prevailing wage, you still have something dangerous flapping in the breeze next to College Highway. Whether it comes up or down, I don't know, throw a giant tarp over it or something. The concern right now is the security for the town.
So Ed, we've got 48,000 minimum, then the fascia and the rotted beams and everything. We've got to assume some of that is going to have to be done. So do we have to go back to town meeting to get the rest of the money?
Yes, we would.
So-
If CPC is going to vote to
Fund the additional?
fund the additional money, that would need to be approved by town meeting.
Okay, so we have to figure out how much that additional money is based on the quote and the specs,
Correct.
get the okay from CPC, then go back to town meeting, which we don't have a town meeting scheduled, normally in January at the earliest. And does that mean if flaps in the wind is, we're talking about until spring? Okay. Right.
At this point, even if you had money and wanted to put it out for quotes again or out to bid, I probably wouldn't recommend it until doing it over the winter time for a spring project. Most of the roofing companies are
Gonna do it
are
anyway.
buttoning up for the year now.
Yeah. So I guess we need to get the additional quotes. I would, what Francine was saying, get quotes for the masonry too, or anything else, so we can go back to town meeting and then maybe go with the other options that we have too. Give them, the town, several options and see what they want to do. Did you have your hand raised, Barb, for that? No? I mean, some people,
I think we should do exactly as you said. Yeah, be thorough in our quotes so that the town knows the overall costs and where that barn's headed, and present that as option one, and then the other two options.
well, it
really.
could be two or three options. One of them was just brought up about, selling it, moving
Stipulations.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing, though, of concern is what Marla raised about the fact that it might be dangerous if some of the material comes loose because of where it's located. And what would our liability be, or what would the cost be to, like you said, just throw a tarp over it and nail it down just for the winter until the work? I think something needs to be done to secure it,
Yep.
unless I don't know. I'm not an expert. I could go look at it. That doesn't mean I'm going to know what to do, but I would think if it was my house and there was something loose and it was dangerous potentially, that I would want to secure it, at least if I can't repair it, so it doesn't cause any harm to anyone else.
You don't have any appropriation for that.
Well, tarps and all of that, I understand that part, but, you have the appropriation for $40,000. What would it cost to do that?
And we have 4 left over from related, so.
I know it'd be for a different purpose,
I mean,
but
we've got to be able to have an emergency appropriation for a repair.
Well, a tarp wouldn't cost that much money, and rope to tie it down tight so that the tarp doesn't flap in the wind.
I don't think they
Rib.
would rope it. I think they would put boards across it and screw it right in,
something.
hold it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tammy Walunas, 298 College Highway. The warrant that was approved by the town was to fix the roof.
So we wouldn't be able to use money.
The process of fixing the roof is to put tarps on now so that in the spring, when we have all our quotes, so that money
We could argue that.
Yeah, you could argue
should
that.
be able to be used to buy, right?
I think it makes sense.
And, because we already know we're going to have to ask for more.
Yep. And tarping, I
It would
can't imagine
resolve
costs
the
more than a
issue right
couple
now
of-
before winter hits.
It's not a bad idea.
It's just a thought.
Yeah,
It's
thank
not
you.
a bad idea.
What do you think, Ed?
I'd really want to look at the town meeting article. Was it repair or was it replace?
So if you can get back to us on that?
Sure.
Okay. And in the meantime, is there a way to get a quote, couple quotes on just what it would cost to heavy tarp it and secure it? I don't know who would do that, to be honest with you. General contractor?
I'll be honest with you, I won't have the time in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be on the licenses, so yes, it's possible, but it's going to be down the road.
Do you think Randall could do that? You can ask him.
I can ask him, but I don't
He
know if
knows
he's got, I
somebody.
don't know if he's got the ability.
But the
Okay.
building inspector.
Or Tom, the building inspector, he might know.
Could I just ask a question, Ed, about your report? When you were listing off the capital, like the septic system, phase 1, 2, solar, paving of the parking lot, all that, was that based on your feedback from various departments around what kind of capital expenses they felt was needed?
It's pretty much my assessment of what is needed, either from conversations with individuals, departments, what have you, over the last 9 or 10 months,
Okay.
or what I physically have seen or on the building.
Town hall, too.
And what deadline did you ask various department heads to get back to you around capital expenses?
For They're to be back to me for this Thursday, which
Okay.
is, I think is, oh God, the 15th, yes. Thank you.
Thanks.
You know, as I'm thinking about the roof, it's a metal roof, so maybe they can just take wood strips and put it across, screw it in, just hold
That would be my thought if there's, yeah, rather than a tarp, but,
yeah,
yeah.
because we just want to hold the roofing from falling off.
You need to come in the inside and look at it too.
Yeah, no, I have gone inside, looked at it, yeah. So I'll try to think of somebody myself that we may use, Ed, I'll let you know. If I can get them out there, I'll be
Thanks.
glad to. Another question I had, nothing to do with it, but a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the oldest resident in town, and I thought maybe the oldest resident had passed away. Did we confirm that?
She did.
Yeah, and do we have a new oldest resident in town that we've identified?
Not that I'm aware of.
No? How do we do that?
Probably talk to Janine.
Yeah.
Janine?
Yeah, and Janine usually works through that.
Okay, I'll ask her. Want to pass the, I'll say the torch, but the cane, so to speak. And the other thing, I was going to bring it up before, but I didn't think of it. Just, what, a little over a week ago, we had the election turnout. I don't know if I got my numbers right, but from what I understood, that we had like 3,249 out of 4,100 voters turning out, which was roughly 79% turnout, which is a great turnout. So it just showed that people are interested. I don't know if it's the best we've ever had, but it's surely up there. So I want to thank all the residents for coming out and showing an interest. It was pretty neat to see that. Okay,
Do you know how many people vote in advance versus day of?
you're asking way too much of me. No, I don't. Janine would know. Janine would know. Of course, after she retires, we're going to lose that institutional knowledge, you know? Like, I guess she's going to volunteer, which would be nice.
The number I heard was 800.
800? Pre? So that's what? 20%?
20%, just about 20%.
Wow. Okay, old business. Do we have any update, Ed, on the East Street Bridge?
Just the fact that, the original estimate on that when we went for the MassWorks grant was a little over $1 million. That has turned into $2.5 million. So we had looked at the possibility of, can we request money through the TIP? And my understanding from talking to Pirate Valley Planning is that the bridge itself has not been deemed structurally deficient by Mass DOT. That it's rated pretty consistently as 5 in the bridge rating categories. They would need at least one of those 3 bridge rating categories to rate 3 to be eligible for the TIP. So actually, Tim Brennan recommended that I contact Mass DOT and see if they might have any ideas or possibilities on it. So I have reached out to them, and I will let you know when I get an answer from them on that. I mean, the flip side of that is if there's not anything we can do there, if we want to move forward with the project and leverage the $1 million we got from the Mass Works grant, is to look at borrowing what would be the balance of roughly 1.5 million through a town meeting appropriation.
That may be a way we have to go, depending on what your information comes out as.
Right.
Any question on that? Okay, 111 Glendale Road, that's still going through the process and getting closer to December when we should know something, so.
Well, I mean, actually, back to East Street, are we moving forward with getting the plans to certain percentages? Because, I mean, all of this takes time.
I have sent that request out, and we should get that back from VHB, and then there'll be the process of the negotiations, and
Okay.
that's why it's on the tickler for executive session.
Yeah, we have executive session for that.
Okay. Right.
And Glendale Road, okay, we're done with that. New business, action discussion, Lands Committee grouping quarterly update. So, community preservation, conservation, open space, and parks. So, community preservation, would you like to start? Seems like we're kind of heavy on this side of the audience here.
Virginia A. Hart, 27 Fulmer Road, Chair of the Community Preservation Committee. And now I'll get down to what I had prepared to say. First of all, in the statewide election, 2 more towns joined the Community Preservation Group, bringing it up to 174 of our cities and towns. One other decided that people that are involved decided that only having a surcharge of 0.5% wasn't doing very much, and they proposed moving it up to a 1%, and the voters turned it down. So who knows?
So, a question, the new towns coming in, what percentage are they eligible for?
You know, that information was not in the materials from, we can be glad that last year's 2 big ones, Boston and Springfield, only came in at 1% each. That keeps them in the pool only once.
Warren at 3%, correct?
Yeah. We have always followed the community preservation rules and had a report to the town and a call for proposals in October. And I've never seen a public notice for anyone's except ours. So we are decided this year, with the instability of knowledge around our funds, that we would wait until the beginning of the year, or we had said December, but we're not going to be ready in December, I don't think. What has happened, of course, is that we don't know about the grant, and if the grant for the Glendale piece doesn't come through, the vote was that community preservation would bond to pay off the rest. And so that'll be a new thing for us. I might say over 75% of the cities and towns in community preservation have already used that mechanism, and we haven't. The second thing is that we don't know what we're getting for a state grant. It's due November 15th. But there are some little catches. One, the state finally, after they were late in closing their books, and when they did, they decided that they were able to put 10 million into the fund. Unfortunately, it was late, and the DOR wasn't really ready to start distributing additional money. So we don't know whether we'll get information or should get information on Thursday about part of the grant, maybe all of it. We may get a second payment later from the money that was infused. On the other hand,
You'll know that Thursday, both ways? If we get one payment or two payments?
we would probably know if there was a second payment coming, but maybe it isn't going to, because there's also talk of keeping it in the pool for next year. So here we are. We don't know what we're getting. So that's one of our problems. And so it makes it kind of hard to give a financial report to the town at this point. So once things settle down, we'll do that, and we will ask for projects. We, of course, take projects all year round. Some towns don't. One town has one time in the year. That doesn't, in my mind, give any room for something to come up, like this land on Glendale Road. Some places, like East Hampton, do it every quarter, but only every quarter at the beginning.
Is that something decided by each town, the
Each
committee?
town.
Okay.
It's in the hands of the
So that
town.
can be changed depending on the committee makeup.
Yeah, it's in the hands of the towns or cities, and we've always felt that things could come up. We wanted to be ready for them. So that's kind of part of where we're at. Anyway, we are pleased that the pavilion roof has come in under what was granted, and every little bit helps. The other thing that I'm pleased to announce is, on that, I have heard from those involved on the Labrie field that they are getting volunteers who are doing some of the work so that it doesn't have to be paid for. And that is always wonderful. The little kiddie park at the preschool, kiddie park at the Norris, had lots of volunteers come to help install it. And they didn't use quite a bit of their money. So that's kind of nice.
And just as a thought, as these people volunteer for other projects, we should keep track of them so we could, say thanks to them.
Yeah. And the only other thing that I have is an invitation for you. The Housing Authority, ever since we've had money coming in for the Housing Authority to try to do something about affordable housing, every time they've worked on something, it hasn't worked out. So they have requested, and I think they said 6 of the builders have responded to an evening of discussion on what is standing in the way, or how can help be given to builders so that they will be encouraged to build affordable homes in town. And that evening is at Paisano's on November 26th. It's Monday after Thanksgiving weekend. They will provide, at 5 o'clock, they will provide the pizza. People will have to provide their own beverage, of course, because government money is not supposed to go to certain kinds of libations. But they will provide the pizza. And the reason of thinking of pizza was people are probably tired of turkey. So you're all welcome to come. The Community Preservation Committee has been invited. The Housing Authority will be there, and hopefully they'll have at least the 6 who have indicated an interest. Do you have any other questions?
Not on that. Any questions?
Okay.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Conservation, Marla. Making a lot of trips up there today.
Yes, I'm delighted. Marla Hank, 64 Gilbert Road, Conservation Commission. There's really not a whole lot I can tell you that you don't already know. Rini comes to almost all of our meetings, and those that she doesn't, I give her a background of it, and she reports to you. So this is totally redundant. The number one thing that would be of importance to us that you can do is get going with the open space and recreation plan. The one we have in place expires at the end of the fiscal year, and without an open space and recreation plan in place, we can't apply for grant money. And without grant money, we can't buy more properties or do certain types of maintenance. Volunteer stewards. We need people to help us out. A lot of times people say, oh, I could do it. No one is asking for a full commitment, like going to all the meetings we go to or site visits. But even if you have one day a year, sign up or send an email to concom@townofsouthampton.org. And it can be really simple. Take a walk on one of our trails and report back to us. I took a walk on the trail and it was clear, or I took a walk on a trail and there was a tree down. Something like that is helpful, just so we know. And then depending on someone else's skill level, they can go out with a chainsaw, or depending on what it is, we have to hire someone, but just help us out. Trail maintenance is more, though, than just trees in the way. We have bridges we have to repair. We have parking lots that have to be constructed. And we do have some dangerous trees that have to be removed. So that goes back to having budget or lack thereof and making sure we have access to grants to help us out. Forest management is something we're going to start to look into a little bit more now, particularly since one of our members is a forester. So he has the right vocabulary and can recognize a tree when it has to come down. And it will help us. It's not to earn money per se, it's to help us have the forest be healthy as well as safe for everyone. In terms of forests and having bridges and parking and trees, the 111 Glendale Road comes to mind. We don't own it yet, but as soon as we do, we'll be expected to put signage and have a parking area. I would encourage anyone who has any background on that property who could come up with a name. You know, we have the Wolf Hill, well, we don't own it, we only have a CR for that, but Wolf Hill, when you look at the old town documents, that name goes way back. Manhan Meadows, you know, is an appropriate name. So what would be a good name for the 111 Glendale Road property? Because everything takes forever in town, unlike a private business. I'm aghast at how long it takes. So if we started 2 years ago, maybe by the time the trail is like 3 years old, we'll have a name for it. So, but since we have to, as part of the state grant, assuming we get it, you have to have certain signs up. So we need a name for it. So please come up with an appropriate name for the 111 Glendale Road property, and please, it's not going to be Glendale Road. And speaking of Glendale Road, when is that road going to be constructed or reconstructed? We, as the Conservation Commission, there's an NOI out because part of the road drainage is going to go near wetlands on the Zipta Farm property, and both the Conservation Commission and the Water Commission are abutters. Excuse me, Randall said that it was his understanding that Mass DOT had awarded the contract, but when is it going to start? You know, as an abutter and as someone with the NOI, we would like to know, when is the road going to be ripped up? Because at some point, we need to have tree work done down there, not to mention the Fletchers who lease our property need to know when do they have access, and so I would ask you.
So Randall didn't have an answer when you asked him?
His answer was, it is his understanding that they awarded the contract to Mr. Gielaher.
Okay.
It's been awarded, it's got to be done in fiscal, well, I shouldn't say fiscal year, I should say calendar year 19, but we haven't been given a, firm date of starting, so.
So next year, basically.
Right.
Probably not the answer you wanted, but.
So this is the example of, this stuff started talking about it with us last September, so it's more than a year. And we're trying to make plans, as we always do, for parking at the Zipta parking area, for roads going into it, trail maintenance. But if it's going to be all ripped up, the front of it, you can't have loggers coming in if there's no
same
road
time,
there.
right, yeah.
So,
You don't want to have loggers come in right after they put a new road in either.
well, there you go.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think the next step on the open space and recreation plan, Ed's going to follow up with PVPC, and it's just an update of the existing plans, so maybe at one of the future agendas, we can have that, okay?
Yeah, Tim Brennan sent me some contact information on that, so for the next meeting, I should have it.
Thanks.
Now, open space is next. Do you have anything additional that you want to say about open space? I
No.
don't. Yeah.
Just waiting for the grant, and
Right.
I do encourage people to come to the meeting on the 28th, because we will be talking about the possibility of setting up an account either from the town, a separate account. I mean, it's an important meeting.
Yeah, it's
to-
interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Want to say more
Kestrel,
about that?
yeah, Kestrel coming to that one?
I don't think so, because I think we're going to be discussing other options besides just Kestrel.
Yeah, they came up with a suggestion that it doesn't have to go through Kestrel, that we can set up one ourselves. We can go through various different ways. I thought it was interesting. It gave us some ideas. Now, anybody on the committee, Diana or anybody, want to say anything on open space? No? Okay, thanks. And Parks Commission. How are you?
Great. Mark Reed, Brickyard Road, Chairman of the Parks Commission. We have been working on two major projects and kind of highlighted earlier during the meeting, but after 10 years, we're finally going to finish Labrie Field. So Marla, you got a long ways to go. That project started 10 years ago, and through CPC funds, we were able to get approved at town meeting $675,000. Currently, we're under phase 1 of the project, which is the irrigation system and field restoration. That contract is with Omasta Landscaping from Hadley. The power supply that is needed to run the irrigation system and eventually part of the field house, which is part of phase 2, is being done through a contract through them from Elm Electric. And part of the discussion earlier about some in-kind services is that Elm Electric was very gracious in their bid to the town and has provided a lot of in-kind services through some people that they have employed that are working on the project. So,
They're right down here in Westfield.
and they're from Westfield.
Yep.
The phase 2 of the project is going to be a pavilion, field house, bathrooms and septic system. We've had conversations about a play area, which is part of the project, and discussions about in-kind services for that and so that's going through the process. We hope to go out to bid in wintertime for spring construction start of that project in itself. So that's Labrie Field. Mentioned earlier is the pavilion roof. That was another CPC funded project that we have. As mentioned, the quotes came in at $14,000. We are about $2,000 under budget, but we are going to need probably some of that money to replace some of the underlayment and sheeting, as mentioned with the Zipta barn. Is always a problem to replace that. So we're hopeful that we don't need a lot and that we can still stay under budget. We also have ordered, and hopefully this soon, very soon, is signs for the parks. We have new pylon signs that are going to be installed at Labrie Field and Crossroads Park, which is off of Helen Drive. And those signs have been ordered and are due in and are being manufactured now. And that again was a CPC funded project that we were able to acquire funds for. And then I had one other thing that came on my mind and it just went out. I know. Relative to both of the projects between Labrie Field and the pavilion, we work very closely with Ed, and I really want to thank him for guiding the Park Commission through the bidding process. He was a huge help, and that without his help, I don't think we would have been able to start the projects and get going. So I want to really thank Ed and his hard work, because he did a great job on that. So.
A question, Labrie Field, Phase 1, and Conant Roof, those all going to be done before the snow flies?
No.
Either?
No. I agree with Ed. The pavilion roof at Conant Park is a spring project. Okay. It's way too late. And as he mentioned, most roofing contracts are buttoning down and getting ready for winter time, so it will not get done. The Phase 1 of Labrie Field, we were hopeful to get done. Mother Nature is not helped in any way, so we are behind. The purpose of getting Phase 1 done this fall was so that the grass could get established, so that hopefully next spring, which now is doubtful, we could start using the fields again. It looks like now we're probably not going to be able to use those fields until summertime. We have two major groups that use the field, SYAA with baseball and Hampshire United with soccer. Those are our biggest users. We also have a men's baseball league on Sunday that plays. And we're trying to minimize the amount of downtime, because there's a lot of kids that use those fields. So at this point in time, we haven't had any cooperation from Mother Nature. So we'll see what happens.
I think they're promising us a very mild winter, so we're good.
Let's hope.
Yeah, really. A question on the bids. So if we're not doing it till spring, do we have pricing that'll hold firm till then, or are they gonna, like on the roof or on?
On our phase, yes. Currently, like Ed mentioned about the roof, yes, we are hopeful within the next month or less.
I'm hoping that probably by the end of this week, I'll have done some of the reference checks. I need to check some of the license pieces, and then we'll move forward with contract. And
So are they willing to hold the pricing though till spring, you think?
I'm happy if they say, if the weather turns, warmer and we think we can get it this year, of letting them do that. So yeah, I haven't had any issues as far as that goes as of yet. But we'll let them do it when they think it's appropriate.
Okay.
And as far as the Phase 1 of a Labrie Field, the field restoration, the irrigation system, and the installation of the underground electric to the property. That's under contract and is ongoing, and that's firm.
Good, good.
So,
Be nice to see that done.
yes.
Good. Any questions for Mark?
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
John, I'm just wondering if I might make a recommendation to change the order and recognize Martha, who's been here. I mean, is that
Change
possible?
the order.
Change the
Yeah,
order
she's
to
down
move up?
here, way down.
We have like 3 other
Oh,
agenda
okay.
items before then. Does that require a motion?
No, if everybody's okay with it, we can take
Fine.
number 9 and bring it right.
Yep.
Principal Assessor, Martha Leamy. Didn't see you hiding back there. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Thanks for waiting. Okay, what do you have for us tonight?
She has.
Well, she's being recognized.
She's being
Go ahead, Ed.
recognized as
Position, yes, I see that.
officially.
I'm still going on committee, sorry.
That's okay. I'm a committee of one.
Yeah.
She's officially received her certification, which is great. So, number one, congratulations. And then the other reason that it is here is just so that the Select Board also recognizes the fact that this is a stipend, which would be $1,000 for a full year, which was not included in the original budget because Martha didn't have the certification at
Right.
that point in time. So at the special town meeting, we will have to make it a point to amend the budget to
So is that
pay the stipend to her.
a stipend or on the base?
Stipend
Okay,
is the way it's been dealt with everyone in the past, so.
okay.
But, it's a great thing. I know Martha has done an awful lot of work preparing to take that certification and do the training, so,
What does
I would
this
like,
allow you to do more than before you had the certification?
Put some letters behind my name.
It's got to mean more than that.
No, it's 7 courses that I began in 1999 when I worked for Amherst, and it now means I am a Massachusetts accredited assessor.
Okay,
So through the Massachusetts Association of Assessing Officers, you get your designation with the MAA behind your name.
so you can go out and do full assessments now where you couldn't, is that?
No, you can still do that. I think it just means that you've taken the classes.
You're more knowledgeable?
More knowledgeable, you've passed the courses, there's a ethics class you have to take, which is extremely difficult. It's more for appraisers, and then there's like a little, the end of the course is for assessors. But it gives me, I guess, legitimacy.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Absolutely.
Because you can
And the
be a
town.
principal assessor, but you don't necessarily have to have your designation. So it means that
Good
I've gone,
questions now.
yeah, through income approach and sales approach and income approach and valuation.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been fun. I've met a lot of people through these courses.
Been a while then.
It has, yeah. I took 5 years off to work with 5-year-olds, and then have since come back to it.
Now, does this require recertification every so often?
Yes, I have to maintain my designation with certain courses and
Continuing ed?
meetings that you can go to, and you can get the credits for it. Yes.
Great, well, make sure we support you in that.
Thank you very much. Yes,
And this-
everyone's
yeah,
been very
this-
supportive.
Yeah, this just makes the towns, I think the work that Martha does for the town, I mean, it just gives it, yeah, it's more credentials and,
Yeah.
so.
I feel taller.
And she's number, she's assessor number 1332.
I am, yes.
Or-
332.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming for that.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
work.
Thank you, Ed.
oh, you're welcome.
Did you want to go?
Thank you.
If you want to, we can.
Sure we do, right? You want to get a picture?
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on up, Martha. We're going to take a picture.
For the website.
Assuming you're willing.
So usually you stand right at the podium where the Southampton sign.
Right button.
That's what I thought I remembered. Okay.
We could stand around it. That's more of an honor for us, Martha, than you in this case. He's gonna-
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
What a fine-looking.
Oh, yes.
He lies.
Here's number one. Big smiles. Yes, I can. All right. We're going to do this again.
Okay.
Nice smiles. That looks good. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm thinking
Thank
Tom
you.
Christmas cards.
Well, yeah, yes, thank you.
I'm always a man.
Thanks, Martha. It's a
Thanks,
great
Reedy, for bringing that up.
professional designation to have.
It is great.
Yeah?
I think that's one of the only positions in town that you have to have certification for to hold.
Yeah.
Is assessing.
So, Ms. Martha, is it required, or is it just elevate you above the folks that don't have it? I thought you were saying.
No, I mean, you don't have to
Right.
have your MAA to get the job.
Right.
But there would be some communities that would not hire an assessor without an MAA.
Okay.
So, yeah, it gives you a little more, worth.
I think it shows your dedication to the field, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
years of experience, but it just means you've taken coursework either through the International Assessing Association or through the MAAO, which is an organization. I mean, Massachusetts is so fortunate to have so many entities of supporting municipal government. So they really have a lot of weight in the international world of assessing.
That's great. Well, hang their certificate proudly in the office. Thank you again. Anybody else that we should pull forward here that I'm not seeing? No. Okay, Sepka barn update. Do we want to continue to talk about that, or have we discussed that enough?
We've discussed it enough.
Okay.
I'm good.
Select boards assigned drinking water supply protection grant.
And we've got representative from the water commissioners here.
Yes.
They had
Kurt
a meeting
is here.
earlier this evening. We haven't gotten the full appraisal back on the property as of yet, but FSI did let us know that their appraisal will come in between $320,000 and $340,000, and that one of those pieces is because we've been in probably one of the wettest 2-month periods we've seen in probably 50 years or more. And one of the things that they had noted on the property is that there was water flowing across it today. So they will question if a few of the acres can actually be developed for building lots. So, but I know the water commissioners met earlier this evening, and I think they have a request for the board to officially file the application for the drinking water protection grant.
DWS. First of all, Kurt Bosley, Strong Road, Southampton Water Commissioner, Chairman, board members. As Ed mentioned, the water commissioners met tonight. We realize you have in front of you the letter to support the grant application, which is due November 15th to the state of Massachusetts. A little background a bit. We have groundwater source in Southampton. Where the water comes from and how it gets to our well is a very complicated science. In 1987, the town spent money to study that, and as a result got this, what's called the Zone 2 protection area around Southampton, which is a regulatory designation of where the recharge is. But also in that 87 study, it identified priority lands to protect. All of the Zone 2 is the same. There's higher level of value to protect than there's lower level. The Pomeroy Meadow Road area, the Walcott Road intersection just up from North School, passing along Pomeroy Meadow, was identified in the 87 study hydrogeologically as a prime area to protect for our wells. The recharge is there, the water running over it now, et cetera, will percolate into the soil and make it down to our well much more rapidly and freely than other parts of Southampton. Some of the commissioners knew that. The results of that study in 1987, we were presented with an opportunity back in late August, presented us that the Kanupka farm might be going up for sale or transfer of ownership. Abutting landowners were interested and willing to protect additional acreage if we could get this acreage from the Kanupkas. We contracted Bob Newton, a hydrogeologist, geology professor at Smith College, just to look at the 87 study to confirm to us what we thought was the case. This is a prime area to protect, and it is. So the application that you have in front of you that you're sending the cover letter to is for a 15-acre parcel of the Kanupka property. And we're asking for a $300,000 grant. It gave the appraised value, and it's due by November 15th. And if we can get that, it's one more piece along the way to possibly secure this protection. And it's not only the 15 acres that we can get, we can leverage another 117 acres of conservation restriction and other protections. So the protection of our source water would benefit greatly from this if we could take advantage of this opportunity. So appreciate if you do sign a cover letter, put the application. The water commissioners are the applicant. Ed will be the project manager as we've laid this out. Kestrel will sign the document, but it's required the cover letter from the Board of Selectmen also.
So if we don't get the land, it could be developed, which would cover the land, and it wouldn't,
We'd
the
lose
water wouldn't
another-
percolate down.
Another possible point of protecting our water source.
So it's important
It is.
that we get this
It
done.
is, yeah.
Any questions for Kurt?
No.
Okay, and we have the grant application, but we also have a cover letter here, so supporting it.
And I'd also just like to acknowledge all the hard work that Diana Fetterman has put into writing the narrative and getting us information on this, as well as Christina Madsen, who has brought this possibility forward. So thank you to both of them.
Thank you to both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have a minute, Christina, who's your butter,
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's an original if they vote.
Okay.
Sign it.
Okay.
Christina Madsen, Rattle Hill. So my sister and I own 80 acres on Rattle Hill, and it runs, and it abuts the Kanupka property. We have offered, my sister and I, Andrea Gilmore, to put a CR on, to donate a CR on our 80 acres to try to make a larger block of conserved land for water protection and just land protection.
Great, well, that's very nice of you.
So it's our land that is helping to augment the size of the proposed purchase.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
So what we have here is a letter that would be signed by me as the chair supporting the grant. So can I have a motion that I can sign this for the board?
I move to authorize John to sign the letter on behalf of the Select Board.
And I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thanks. Let me do this quickly. It's an opportunity we don't want to miss. So
Did you happen
let's
to
get
say
this-
when the award will be made for the grant?
I think in the past, February.
February? Okay.
Who is sending the grant in? Is it the water commissioners, or are you sending it in?
Actually, Mark Wamsley from Kestrel will
So you'll get that letter to him?
submitting it.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
That was going to be one of my questions too. Kestrel will be responsible for actually making the submission on time?
That's correct.
Okay.
And either Diana or I are responsible for getting some original documents to them tomorrow. Mark hasn't responded to me of exactly which original documents he's looking for, because he's already got most of the information. So once he does that, we'll get him the information so he can get it filed.
I'd also like to thank Diana. She has put in a formidable amount of work on this. It wasn't an easy application to complete, and she dove right in, and she's just done a marvelous job. The town really owes her a lot of gratitude.
Thanks, Diana.
Thank you, Diana.
You're becoming our official grant writer, which is a great thing for us. And Kurt, if you could thank the rest of the water commissioners, we appreciate it. Okay, here we have Highway Superintendent, non-elected disclosure of financial interest and determination. That's somewhere in our package, Ed?
Yeah.
There are 5 disclosures for non-elected municipal employee of financial interest. As you know, our highway superintendent, Randall Kemp's wife, is a real estate attorney. So there are 5 different ones in the package. Number 1, particular matter as highway superintendent, my duties include signing the building permit application, issuance of permits for trenching, curb cut to open a public way, etc., as well as making recommendations to town boards and committees regarding subdivision, road, and cul-de-sac layouts, driveways, drainage, etc., approval of changes to project design and project inspections throughout the construction process. Item 1 is my wife is an attorney whose primary concentration is real estate, and she represents John Broder, who is building a house at 5 Madeline Way. Mr. Broder will need me as a function of my position as highway superintendent to sign the building permit application and issue one or more of the following permits: trenching, curb cut to open a public way, and I may be required to make decisions or recommendations to town boards and committees regarding driveways, drainage, etc., and approval of changes to project design. I will have a conflict when Mr. Broder uses my wife to represent him in association with this project. I request that the Select Board make a determination on 5 Madeline Way. The financial interest is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services which the municipality may expect from me. Number 2, my wife is an attorney whose primary concentration is real estate, and she represents Tom Basis, who is building a house at 75 Valley Road. Mr. Basis will need me as a function of my position as highway superintendent, basically the same as the previous one. I request that the board, Select Board, make a determination on 75 Valley Road that the financial interest is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services which the municipality may expect from me. Number 3 is essentially the same. My wife is an attorney whose primary concentration is real estate, and she represents Paul Trueheart, who is building a house at 13 Cook Road. Mr. Trueheart will need me as a function of my position as highway superintendent to sign the building permit application and issue one or more of the following permits: trenching, curb cut to open a public way, and I may be required to make decisions or recommendations to town boards and committees regarding driveways, drainage, etc., and approval of changes to project design. Again, Mr. Kemp's requesting the board make a determination on 13 Cook Road. The financial interest is not so substantial as to deem likely to affect the integrity of the services which the municipality expects from him. Number 4, again, my wife is an attorney whose primary concentration is real estate, and she represents Paul Trueheart, who is building a house at 78 Glendale Road. Mr. Trueheart will need me as a function of my position as highway superintendent to sign the building permit application and issue one or more of the following permits: trenching, curb cut to open a public way, and I may be required to make decisions or recommendations to town boards and committees regarding driveways, drainage, etc., and approval of changes to project design. Again, Mr. Kemp requests the Select Board to make a determination on 78 Glendale Road that the financial interest is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the service he provides to the town. And then lastly, my wife is an attorney who represents David Hardy. Mr. Hardy is developing 14A and B Gun Road Extension. Mr. Hardy will need me as a function of my position as Highway Superintendent to sign the building permit application and issue one or more of the following permits: trenching, curb cut, and to open a public way, and I may be required to make decisions or recommendations to town boards and committees regarding driveways, drainage, etc., and approval of changes to project design. I request that the Select Board make a determination of 14A and B Gun Road Extension that the financial interest is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services which the municipality may expect from me.
And these are pretty standard every time Randall has an issue with his wife being an attorney representing somebody building. So we've seen these many times. Anybody have any question on these?
We need a motion or no?
Yeah, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the disclosures on these 5 incidences.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Need them all signed, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, sign them.
Want me to do them now, or it doesn't matter?
As long as I get them back tonight.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to jump off number 8 for a second and see if we can get a couple of these other out. Number 10 is resignation of Karen Adamski from the Greenway Committee, which means we have a vacancy there. Ed, has anybody expressed interest?
No, they have not.
Okay, so if anybody's interested in serving on the Greenway Committee, which meets fairly infrequently, they can see Ed on that, and he can run them through the process. Again, I'm going to skip forward a second. Got 2 warrants on here, Francine. Would you mind going over those?
Sure. Warrant P 19-18 for $263,294.74. And PD 19-18 for $41,704.98.
Okay, these are all signed. There's no vote needed.
Yes.
Jumping on the back, minutes to approve, October 2nd, 2018 minutes. Everybody had a chance to read those?
I'll make a motion to approve the
Yes.
October 2nd regular session minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, Select Board meetings, just November 27th and December TBD, which we should do now since December's coming quick.
Plus, Randy pointed out last time that Christmas and New Year's are
27th.
Tuesdays.
Oh, good.
So December 11th would be the next one on schedule.
I have no problem with December 11th.
Me neither.
December 11th, I'm okay with that. So we want to go December 11th,
6.
Yep.
6 p.m.?
6 p.m., Ed.
Yes. Rub it in, please. I'll tell you.
I'm just joking
Well,
with
no,
it,
no,
kind
it's
of.
quite all right. What you're going to have to pay attention to now is the agendas, because I'll
That's
tell you,
right.
for the next 3 years, I'm going to be concentrating on that time on the
Yeah.
meeting schedule
Oh,
piece
my
so
Lord.
much.
So when we get the 11th, we'll decide when we want to meet again? Depending on the holidays and what issues are there?
Probably set it up now.
Yeah.
Only
Well,
because
it's-
of
it's
the
Christmas and New
licensing
Year's.
issues and a few other things, so I probably wouldn't leave it to.
Can I back into this a little bit by asking, when would the special town meeting be?
Well, we haven't decided that.
Well, the free
we gotta-
cash has already been certified, right? Wasn't
Yes,
that
it
what
has.
held
Yeah.
things up last time?
Yeah, it was certified
Yeah.
just recently. And Ed and I talked offline about that. We got to figure out how much we have to put a town meeting together. So let's do this, and we can go into that
Okay.
if we want under other business.
Should we think about doing it at the tail end of the week before, like the 20th or the 21st?
I was thinking about skipping it and going to
The week,
or, yeah.
Like
or
after New
skipping-
Year's?
Skipping the week between Christmas and New Year's. So, yeah,
No,
in that case, we'd probably have
we're
to have one
going,
before.
we're going into
I
January.
think Ed thinks that we may have work, right?
Yes.
So we
correct.
would have to meet a second time in December.
Definitely.
All
Okay.
right, so I mean, unless we want to meet between Christmas and New Year's,
Oh.
which,
So the 20th?
I think
I'm thinking the 20th, yeah.
20th is
Yeah.
fine.
yeah.
I could do that.
Okay.
And we can alter it if we need as we go.
Yeah, I can do the 20th,
Yeah.
6 PM.
Yep,
Yep.
6 PM.
Not only 6 PM, but I will have to note on the agenda that, and the meeting schedule, that it's a Thursday.
Yep.
This is wrought with complication.
I know I will not live this one down for a while, and I don't blame you.
No. It's happened to everybody.
I don't
I
like it.
admit
I
for
don't-
myself, I've
I
done it.
don't like it when it happens to me.
Okay, so before we go back, let's just do the open time for the public. Is there anybody?
Margaret Larson, David Street. So this is, I don't know, announcement/warning. So I have a passion project, which is to enable our 16-year-olds to vote in municipal elections. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to be looking into the process for Southampton. I don't know if that involves a petition or, the vote, but I will be looking into that. And I suspect, in the interest of transparency, that it will involve some town resources, because for most municipal elections, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But when we have a situation like we did in the last municipal election runoff that was combined with another election, that might cost us some more money, because there might have to be 2 different ballots, and just a different scenario set up for 16-year-olds who can only vote, or 16 and 17-year-olds municipal versus 18-year-olds and above. So just wanted you to know that I'm looking into it, and I'll probably be back before you with some ideas about how we do this.
Is this being integrated? Will this be integrated into the curriculum at the high school?
I'm certainly hoping so, yes.
Makes sense.
It would make sense to do with a conjunction with the government class, or, to get some students involved in this, because I know there is interest among the students. It's not the old lady who's deciding something.
Okay.
We also just passed legislation around having civics education in schools.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Northampton just did approve this in July or June when they had their election.
So you can kind of look at how they did it?
Yeah, and their government's set up a little bit differently, so that's kind of what I need to talk to Ed about and kind of work with them and see how they did it, so.
Come back to us, let us know
Oh, yeah.
how it's going.
I will.
Good, thank you. Anybody else?
Okay.
Okay. Now we're back to number 8, review Hampshire Regional Agreement and Budget.
Yeah, so I added this, so I should speak to it.
Yep.
And I think this will I would like to see this be an ongoing agenda item, but it's something that I want to look at, because I think that this agreement, and at this point I've read through it twice, and it's an old agreement that's been amended. It looks like one time, but it looks like we're riding on an agreement that's nearing 20 years old, that hasn't been amended or updated since. And I think we really need to look at this. And I think if I'm trying to oversimplify it, and I'm sure we can get into some of the details of this, number one, it doesn't include all of the towns that participate, or that send kids to our school outside of school choice. And I think that it should be amended to include all of the towns that are accessing Hampshire Regional, so that not only the operating income is shared, but the capital expenditure is shared. I also think that the way that the money is dispersed, I think, is fair, in that it looks like we pay our fair share in terms of how many pupils we send to Hampshire Regional as a percentage of the total pupil enrollment. I want to make sure I'm reading this correctly, but I believe the amount of money that the town of Southampton contributes to Hampshire Regional is directly proportional to the number of students that we send to Hampshire Regional.
On a rolling average.
On a rolling average that's determined on a yearly basis, and so I think that that's fair. The part that I would like to look at, and I haven't, I don't have an opinion on this yet, is the ability to accept or not accept the budget for the school going forward. And I guess where I'm going with this is that it appears to me that to accept this budget requires a 2/3 majority vote to accept the Hampshire regional budget as voted by the member committees, the 5 towns, and there's 18 members. There's 18 members of the 5-town school committee. We have 6 of the 18 by the agreement, which isn't enough to overcome the 2/3. Yet we're supplying, at this point, we're supplying 44% of the money. And so I guess, so we are right on the line of not having the ability to accept or not accept that budget, to send it back to be revised. And I guess my thing with that is shouldn't we have, and this isn't a question of like whether Southampton should have more or less rights or power with regard to the other 5 towns, and I don't want it to be misinterpreted that way, but I just feel like the bar should be much higher to accept a budget so large. And I guess what I mean is maybe the bar should be 75% or something of that nature. Sure.
So the votes for the Hampshire, or for Southampton residents,
And Margaret's
sorry.
on the Hampshire
Yeah,
Regional
of
School
course.
Committee.
So the votes for the Southampton school committee members are weighted. So that does impact the vote.
So we
It's
have
always
more
been
than
sti-
6 votes.
Yes.
Yeah, there is
We
a
have
weight.
the equivalent of 44% of the say.
No, because the weight of the votes is by the town's population, so there's 2 different population metrics, if I'm not mistaken. There's the population of the school,
And the
which,
population of the
there's the
town.
pupil population of the school, which carries the amount of money that we contribute, but then the weight of the votes is based on the census population,
Which is
Okay.
every
But
10
we're-
years.
but if-
which is every 10 years of every
Yes.
town.
But if I look at what I see in that data, the demographics, we are more than twice the size in population
this is where I'm going with
of
this.
the next largest, and almost 3 times the size in population of all the other remaining towns.
Yep. And so where I'm going with this is that regardless of the weight, I've been told, and you can, if this is not true, I would like to know. But my understanding is that it requires a 2/3 vote, and it seems that the weight that our vote carries is not more than 2/3 ever. Like, it does require members from other towns to send this back for revision.
That would be correct.
That's correct,
That is
right?
correct.
And so I guess what I'm suggesting, or at least what I want to open for discussion, is should that bar be higher for several reasons, in that it seems like it's a pretty low bar to me
Yeah.
for such a large budget,
And that vote,
regardless of the power strength that.
right,
that it
and that
has.
vote just approves the budget, then it goes to each town,
Correct.
and we only have 1 vote out of 5.
Right.
You got
So
it.
we're always behind the 8
Eight
ball.
ball.
So
Yep.
Yeah.
there would have to be 2 towns at that point who would reject it.
Yep.
Correct.
At that point, once it goes to the
Yes.
vote.
And
But I just think that we need to have higher bars
Yeah, and
on
be-
all of this. It's such a large item that encompasses our budget and then encompasses the other member towns' budget, that I feel like I think we owe it to ourselves as well as to the other towns to have a much higher bar with regard
I
to
think it's a
this.
good discussion to have. I do encourage you to look at the equity factor, that we do have small towns contributing to this, and Southampton is always the 80-pound gorilla, no matter what. Like, there are times when we cannot hold a meeting if we don't have enough Southampton people there because of the weighted votes.
But yet we have no
We have no
control
say in
over
this.
our own
We have literally no
finances.
say in this.
I guess looking at a couple of things here, the one,
Feel
how,
free to jump up here.
how are the school choice students? They're paid for at what, $5,000 per student?
Correct.
Okay. How does that factor in?
unless
I
they're
know that,
Worthington
that's,
students.
that $5,000 per student is backed out, and then our portion is,
That is correct.
okay. But that's still not the full weight, because my concern is what is the real cost per student at Hampshire Regional? It's got to be more than $5,000.
It is. I mean, it is.
Okay.
it's-
Oh,
it's-
yeah.
So then
it's-
we're at a
So we're not-
loss of,
so we're-
so
so
we're at a
we're
loss of.
behind.
It
well-
is so for every single school district in Massachusetts, or
Sure, but
actually the
is
US,
that,
Okay.
I
but
would
is that
say.
something to not
Yeah.
accept so many school choice people because it sinks us more?
It
Or am I
gives-
not
it
thinking
gives
about
you
that?
I don't
money
know if
when
it
you
does or
spread
it
it out.
doesn't, yeah. And my other question is,
Because remember, we're getting money from other sources.
Yeah, but I don't-
Southampton and the towns is not the only source of income that we're getting. I shouldn't call it income, but funding, I should call
right.
it.
And then the other thing is, I know we have an agreement with Worthington, and you look at that, and there's some additional funds in there, but it doesn't cover, the capital portion
Well, that's the
of
Worthington
budget,
issue that I brought up,
which is
basically.
substantial from
It
year
is.
to year, depending upon the projects. So I'm looking, so they benefit from the capital improvements to the school, but they don't necessarily pay for them.
Can I raise a process question?
Yes.
This is a big topic, and we have people that were elected by the voters to be on the Hampshire Regional School Committee, and we didn't invite the Hampshire Regional School Committee to come to this meeting. So, I mean, I think it's a great discussion, and I think it's a long-time contract. I was on the school committee at one particular point, and I just want to give credit to the people that are sitting around the table at the Hampshire Regional, that maybe, we can discuss
but
in
it- but also-
general, but details about
would
funding
love
and
to see that.
percentages and all that
No,
kind
of
of
course,
stuff.
but in fairness to the procedure here, it's not like we can articulate over email what exactly that it is that we
No,
want
I'm
to
saying that we
discuss. So I agree
invite
with
school
you.
committee members to
Sure.
come to a joint meeting and have a
I think it would be
conversation
helpful
about
to
it.
know what
I think
additional
we do.
information I might need to bring to the table.
Yeah.
I think this is just general exploratory.
That's what I meant,
kind
and
of
that's what I
I'm
meant,
saying.
and
I
that's
just
what I
think if we
meant.
start getting
I
into
think
details.
we've needed to have this conversation for a long time, so
And
I'm
that's-
I agree.
happy that we're
I
having
agree.
it.
And so that's my intention on this. That's why I think it should be an
Yeah.
ongoing item. But the things that I've been thinking about is obviously Worthington, the fact that this agreement's very old and it's such a powerful agreement that encompasses a serious amount of money that I just think it should, as a
Absolutely.
matter of process, be almost amended.
Were either of you on the
Certainly
school committee when Worthington,
more often than it is.
their school closed?
No,
Because
we came in the year after that.
We tried looking
Because
at
I
this
was,
in
I
the
was
past,
curious
and
about that
people-
too, because
So it's good that we
it was
bring it.
my understanding that in order for a town to be included, it had to be a vote of all the members. Because at one point, we talked about dissolving the agreement and had to be a vote of all the members, so we felt like our hands were tied. And then somehow along the way, Worthington came in paying an administrative charge to share a superintendent or be mentored into that relationship. And they had a lot of students come in as school choice, and yet they're on the letterhead, 6 towns, 1 school. So what decision was made to sort of bypass the regional agreement in order to accept that, that way of doing it? I think there's a lot of
Yeah,
things
so
that should
Rena,
be
I'm
discussed.
totally with you that to have a deep discussion and details about this is completely unfair without obviously inviting the school
Right.
member here. But in order to start the process without deliberating it
Yeah.
outside of
Right,
open
and
meeting,
yeah.
this is
In
kind
all-
of
in
how
all
it's got to
fairness, I
start.
think everyone who's on, because they do a great job.
Yep.
They're at every meeting. You could educate us a lot more. I mean, I'm just getting.
And
I don't.
we are missing the historical perspective of Bill
Yes.
Curran and Corey Broadstad, who were both on the committee at that time. The rest of us are not.
It was probably a great agreement at the time, and it's just, now it's time to
Or
relook.
maybe
And
it
even if it
wasn't,
is still
but
great,
there needed to be an
yeah.
agreement, and
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
agreement.
But we need
that
to
was
relook at
arrived
it, I
at.
think it's
the time. I agree.
And I think the principal and the superintendent would, they're willing to
So-
engage in all those discussions, so.
And I just want to be clear about my point of this. I think that the agreement's just so old that we need to just relook at it. It might very well be that the agreement reads well, we're all in agreement with it, we need to add Worthington and update the date of this, but it also might be that as we look at it, we decide that we want to change
We didn't
some
have
things
School
around.
school
committee
choice
might
coming
decide to
in and
change
out.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I just
Yeah.
want to be clear that the
Yes.
jurisdiction of this is actually the elected school
Yeah.
committee, not us.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But
But I think, it comes back, and it does come back to the town.
Yep.
And we're in that situation if we're the only town that would reject the budget, it's still, it's still our obligation.
Yeah,
We would need
we're
more.
dragged
So
into
I think working
into it every
together
year.
and having a dialogue
Yeah.
kind of before the fact, before the budget is passed at the regional level, having a conversation about, you know, our
Yeah.
financial position, quite
Which
frankly.
comes into the argument of this, because we don't have the ability to reject that budget at that
Right.
time. We don't have that. I guess it begs the question of whether or not we've earned that, or whether we're entitled to that, or whether just the bar should be generally higher so that.
But when you look at the numbers, I mean, Worthington sends 26 students.
Right.
That's it.
I have
So-
one final.
You're preaching to the choir.
I know.
So
I'm
what I
looking at
would
this.
say is that I feel over the past year or so that we've entered into a new dynamic between the town and the school committee, and I feel like this is part of that dynamic, that we're looking at things perhaps more closely and, you know, trying to build a relationship that's beneficial to the town and the school. So to me, this is just another step in that direction.
Yep.
That's a good
so-
way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
No, it's true.
No, you're right.
It's true, yeah.
When you were talking about
You want to announce
Tammy
yourself?
Wilderness 298 College Highway School Committee, when you were Matt, when you were talking about the budget being approved and everything, of the 6 votes for last year's budget, 1 member did say no.
Okay.
Well, he abstained.
He abstained.
He had it, he
Abstained.
verbalized his
You're referring
objection.
to Southampton, or you're
Yep,
referring to?
Southampton.
Okay.
He
got it.
verbalized his objection, but he abstained in the vote.
Yeah,
He abstained because
But
of
that
the
wouldn't have
lack
done
of
it.
state funding.
It was
right, because it was